Okay, class, you should have this document in D2L, but I wanted to give it a little bit of explanation. I know it's a little wordy, so here's the deal. To analyze something is the complete opposite of summary. The bad thing is that a lot of you guys in your high school experience, you've been made to summarize and repeat what you've read. Summarize, repeat what you've read. And that's probably because that's the way that the government wants education to work, because it requires absolutely no thinking and makes you good little followers who just repeat everything you say without really actually thinking about it. And that's why probably analysis and writing analysis essays is probably something new to most of you and something you probably didn't even do in high school. So to summarize is to repeat and regurgitate, just like you heard it, be a good little drone. To analyze is to think for yourself. And what analyzing means is you take something and you break it down as much as you can and think about how each of the parts that you've broken down work, what it does and what it means and what effect it has on something or someone. Okay? Now, the easiest way for me to tell you how to do this is this little section that you're seeing right here, how to analyze. And anytime you come across a word in a poem, for instance, the title, or even a word or an image or symbolism or punctuation, like why, or a line break, like why did this author choose to end this poem here? Why did this author put a stanza break, a space in between these two stanzas? No matter what it is, whether it be a word or an image or a punctuation or the structure of a poem, if you want to know how to analyze, you just ask these questions. Why did the author put it here? And what does it do? How is it working in the poem? How is it affecting me, the reader? What does it do? And lastly, how does it help make the point of the poem or piece of advertising or speech or whatever it is that you may be analyzing? That's the basic step. So, of course, obviously, you want to read the poem first and get a basic understanding of what they're trying to communicate. Look up any words you don't know, obviously, because you won't understand the poem fully unless you understand all the words. And then for poetry, the way to analyze, once you've read the poem out loud to yourself and read it a couple of times and thought about what it might mean, is to start at the top. Why did the author choose these words as the title? What does the title do? How does it give us meaning for what's to come in the poem? Does it foreshadow? Does it give us a set of tone or emotional tone? How does it work? And then, why did the author choose it? How does it work towards the total meaning of the poem? And then you move line by line down the poem, asking those exact same questions of every word, every phrase, every piece of punctuation, every imagery, every image, every line break, stanza break. You just repeat those three things. That's how you analyze. And this applies to, advertisements, presidents' speeches, basically anything. If you want to know somebody's motivation and what their meaning is. So when you write an analytical essay, we have some steps here. And this is for a general analytical essay. We'll be specifically doing an explication, which I'll go over, and a rhetorical analysis. Okay, so this is just steps in a general analysis essay, and I'll run through them very quickly. You never, ever, 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 ever summarize or use you or first person I in analysis. It's always third person. You state things like they're facts, and you either back those facts up with explanation or quotations. Okay? Just like any other essay, your analysis has to have a strong thesis, and every other sentence is trying to prove it. And that thesis, is at this point, you got to be past the 3-point thesis, and you're on to many different main points in your introduction, many different points in your thesis. Your thesis may be 3 sentences. All right. So remember, the rest of your essay is trying to prove that thesis. And a thesis in an analytical essay usually, is discussing how things work and how the author made them work. You should have learned in 1101, you don't ever drop a quote in by itself. It has to be introduced with some kind of phrase, and there's a number of different words for that: signal phrase, anchor phrase, attributive tag, whatever. And has to be part of a sentence and have a quotation. You should never just drop a quote in as its own. You avoid slang. You should know that. Literature, you write in the present tense. If something happens in the poem, the narrator says it, writes it, or states it, or something does things in the poem in the present tense. Okay. Don't start a paper off with often today or in a conclusion with in conclusion. I've just done that too many times. If you do discuss anything that's not in the poem to help understand the poem, you better discuss it in a sentence because we're just analyzing the poem. You don't want to waste word space on stuff that's not analyzing the poem. So if there's any idea that's not in the poem that's out there in the real world that connects, you better make that connection briefly and quickly, and it better be good. Never ever define words in an essay either. We are in college. Everybody is expected to look up words or know what most of them mean. So unless it's a word that 99% of your class and even me wouldn't know, then you define it, Otherwise, don't do that. And in literature, always assume that the narrator, never assume that the narrator is the author unless you know for a fact that they are. Because many times writers write from the point of view of different genders, even different species, much less different characters. So, all right. And don't use thing or it in a paper. Okay, and this is just kind of an explanation of what the difference of summary and analysis is using Batman. And here you can see I have a short list of many of the literary elements you should be looking out for, that we'll kind of go over a little bit in your terms. Okay, thank you.